In 1949, the Chinese Communist Party under Mao Zedong took control of China, ultimately resulting in the deaths of between 40 and 80 million Chinese people due to Mao's totalitarian policies. That's the same number of people killed in the whole Second World War. The Communist government declared that they held power on the 1st of October 1949. The British government did not recognise communist rule for some months until the 6th of January 1950. The key events of this case happened between those two dates. As the communist government took over, the previous nationalist government withdrew to the island of Taiwan. The Central Air Transport Corporation was a government corporation with a fleet of around 40 aircraft. The fleeing nationalist government moved those 40 aircraft to what was then the British colony of Hong Kong. On the 12th of November 1949, the communist government declared that the 40 aircraft were its property. However, 1 month later, on the 12th of December 1949, the nationalist government sold the aircraft to an American corporation, Civil Air Transport Incorporated. There was a dispute about who owned the aircraft, and the dispute was heard in the British courts because the planes were on British territory. In fact, the British Parliament passed special legislation to ensure there were no questions about jurisdiction in this case. Clearly, at the time of the sale, the British government had not recognised the Chinese Communist government. The question was whether, once they did recognise the government, they should also recognise its acts from the time it took over until the time of that recognition. Lord Simon said, retroactivity of recognition operates to validate acts of a de facto government which has subsequently become the new de jure government, and not to invalidate acts of the previous de jure government. The effect of this reasoning was pretty simple. The aircraft had been in Hong Kong, a British colony, so the Communist Chinese government had never taken possession of them. At the time the nationalist government sold the aircraft, the nationalist government was still the recognised government of China, and so the sales were valid. From this case, we learn that while the recognition of a new government may involve retrospective recognition of its conduct prior to its formal legitimacy, this will not necessarily undo the recognition of actions by the previous government. The entire process is extraordinarily complicated when there are two competing governments claiming the same territory.